Hey, I'm Cesar de la Cruz, co-host of the Tolleson-Mack podcast. And with me today is Brandon Brown and one of my favorite healers of all time, Mr. Britt Bockius.
Another double B in the house.
Yeah.
That's it. That's pure talent when you have to go with both of them.
Yes, sir.
Well, I say that, because in high school level, and I kind of thought about that time I'm going to be a professional healer. I kind of kept it to myself a lot. But, man, I remember cutting a page of you and Charles Pogue out of a magazine, a couple of them actually, but you had a really nice, it was after the U.S. Open win, and you kind of broke it down a little bit in that magazine. And I remember I use it in my clinics all the time, talk about, when you're swinging a heel rope, you want to have a little bit, you almost like want to be swinging a bucket. You want to be able to have a lot of feel the tip weight. And you mentioned put a little water in a bucket and swing it around, put a rope at the end of it, swing it around. I still use it that day. I'm like
I mean, I guess, growing up, and I say it again, I was gifted and blessed with this talent, but I don't think people really do understand the time frame and the hours that you put into becoming a successful healer. I mean, in the team roping business, it's tough enough because of the finances and everything. And I see it growing, and I'm super proud of the sport, and I'm more humbled now, and I took a lot for granted, the shit that I did for a living. And maybe it was too much of a whirlwind, but I do take it in all now and think and look back. And I always, when I first started, I wanted to teach as passionate as I took my healing. And so when I started, because I don't know, not necessarily was it hard for me to learn, but I headed up into a point, just like a lot of young guys do, and I suggest people do that because it's just easier to start that way. And then you go from there to deciding, hey, look, the chicks probably dig healers quite a bit more than they do headers, because at that time, if you went to a jackpot, you could have a header win first and second. And the one healer that won first, he was always the baddest motherfucker.
Always,
the baddest
man.
motherfucker
Always.
there. And he says, hey, great healing, great healing. And then the header would just be walking out. He might have spun. All of them got out of the barrier just like that. But the fucking healer, they dig him. That's why. So, but I use that. I say that at my schools when people, why'd you decide to heal? I use that. But at that time, it was more prominent that healing was, I mean, it was like the power forward. It was your KDs. It was your LeBrons, the guys that headed. Yeah, nowadays I think it's changed completely. But at the time, when I think of team roper, I think of I think of some badass fucking healers, and that's where I wanted to be at that time, and that's the direction I chose. And and schools, when I started teaching and becoming passionate about teaching, most of the time when I was doing them with Doyle, we would have in the spring 15 to 20 schools, and we would fill them up because Doyle had a great clientele. Doyle is probably one of the best. I'm speaking of Doyle Gellerman. He's probably one of the best teachers, got in the Hall of Fame last year. A lot of great things came with Doyle as a mentor, as someone that told me what the fuck was up when I needed to be told what was up in the straightest and most civil way. That's probably the guy that I would always kind of go to. But when he started teaching, it was just, I'd listen to him and I'd melt. Because, I mean, if I'm heading, I want to learn how to head through this guy. And then one thing that I always tried to do, too, is I always tried to make sure, and I see a lot of it today, because I do Graham and maybe TikTok and all that shit enough to know that I keep up with the social media. But I see people teaching that probably shouldn't. I'm not going to lie. I see things and theories that have been tossed around and moved as far as teaching healing. And here's the thing. I don't want fucking healing to be difficult for anybody. I love it when people do good. I do. When I'm at my schools, when I see somebody catch after 2 days of just fucking
high
struggle,
fives.
I love it.
Yeah.
It's nothing more. And there's no one that loves it anymore. I mean, I've had guys that have achieved milestones of things in businesses, but they'll tell me that the most important fucking thing for them to do is to rope 2 feet. And I'm like, you know what? You're right. That's pretty cool. And I've done it probably to the point, like I said, I don't toot my own horn often, but I mean, I worked hard to become a household name. I didn't want to just do it. I wanted to do it as good or better than any motherfucker that ever shit behind a pair of Justin boots.
For those that didn't know, Britt won everything there was to win by the BFIs and all that good stuff. And
13 times?
Yes, and very. At one point, you had the arena record there for the longest time at the NFR, like known as being the fastest healer. And he made healing cool. You know what I mean? Yeah. Like back then, the headers set everything up, and the healers were taking the chances. Like they were whipping it down there fast.
Yeah.
and Britt did it the best. You know, like
So
it was awesome to watch at all the jack. But when I was a little kid, you know what I mean. Britt had these horses that were immaculate. You know, looked really cool. At one time, I was over there seeing Snoop Dogg.
Yeah.
Right there, that bay horse. He was a cool looking, especially when he got done healing one and set one down. He kind of had that cool look walking out of the arena. You know what I mean? Like,
He was pioneered, and during that time too, for my '90s was mostly rap. I mean, people ask what your genre of music was, but hey, I was straight SNOOP DOGGYs. Because I mean, I just liked it, and it was different. But yeah, I named them all something kind of cool because I'm definitely northeastern dysfunctional low key. I mean, but it's who I am. It's what I do.
So you say back in those days, like the healer was the bad motherfucker that came out of, the short round. So
It really was. Yeah, I mean, it really was. And anything, they gave most credit to a guy that would maybe rope 4 in a row as compared to a header that might have done it 8 times.
So do you think like back then, they would you'd get a solid header, the one that was just turn you one and you'd make up the time, or you were the rock star in the relationship. So would maybe as long as you could do your job, you were the rock star, you could do no wrong. I mean, you were the
Yeah,
they
and
would put up with a lot of shit, is what I'm saying.
Yeah, and with the things like that too. I mean, it was starting with a guy named Britt Bockius, and I believe he's in Arizona now. But he was the right guy for me to start with because I needed balance. I came from not necessarily a broken home, but my dad was just a lot like our other fathers. He was a mean motherfucker at times, I mean, and it just. A lot of times people ask nowadays, what do you credit your healing to? I know Cesar talks a lot about roping goats. I did the same thing because what I would do is if I knew that I woke up in the mornings and I seen that my dad was just fixing to be half silly, then I knew that it was time for me to escape, or otherwise it was not going to be good. So I used my healing as an escape. I went out to rope the sawhorse or the dummy that I'd made in FFA that wasn't worth a shit, that weighed 400 pounds, to having to duct tape my goat's legs to the point that I didn't know, hey, look, this one might have had too many pulls, but I still like to make them beller. I like to fucking.
So in a sense, like, I mean, in a roundabout way, your dad kind of pushed you to become
Yeah, it was a push.
But
yeah.
I'm saying, like, some dads, they're there to encourage them, and,
Yeah.
and they have a lot to do with their success. And you're saying in your case, like, you saw your dad and he's like, man, I need to go out here and
I need to get away,
and
man.
And that made you probably the healer that you
Yeah,
became.
yeah. I was offered everything. I'm not taking anything away from what my parents did to me, especially my mother, as far as granting me the things that I needed to take my vehicle and go wherever I needed to. My mother was a strong backbone in that. My dad was too at times, but he was just, I don't know, heck, who knows? Maybe he was chemically imbalanced. He's passed. I loved him. I hugged his neck and I told him I'll find no faults. But he was a mean motherfucker, and at times I wanted to get away from that. When I did, I went and healed my goat or my show pig or anything that passed by. I would remember at times I would wait on the bus, and it was a horrible 2-hour ride from the Kansas-Oklahoma line to where I actually would go to school at in Copan. But I had a gate, a big old swinging gate, and it had 2 pieces of chain coming off of it. So I'd get where I'd swing that gate faster, and I'd rope the chain. So, and I tell people that. I tell people nowadays at my schools, or I've slowed down some doing them, but I'm still passionate about those that really want to learn how to heal. And I'm here to help those people and cut corners and say, look, there's a certain way that you kind of got to do it. So we got to have a swing. We got to have the right position, because again, I think there's so much commercialized shit nowadays that I think that it gets people in trouble, and they try so hard, they're dedicated and all this other stuff. But I could at one time, and nothing against the Buford mechanical dummy, but I could at one time doing the schools my second year, and I would bank. I would leave with 3,000 cash. Dole would make sure we got paid cash. We would do a Friday, Saturday, Sunday school. The third day got monotonous as fuck because you would tell these people the same shit all the time. But when I left there, I was maybe the first couple of schools upset because I didn't see the progress that I wanted.
Yeah.
Personally, as a teacher. But yeah, I mean, as I look back, I think to myself, why is this guy not getting it? Or why is this nice lady, I want her to learn to throw a hula hoop, a gate in front of the feet. And I want this steer to get in it so bad. And how do I come across to teach her that? Going back to what Cesar was talking about, the bucket. So I'm thinking, all right, let's get Okie. So I'm like, tip control is most important. Now, with that being said, you can tell that to a businessman that has a generator company and its name is Furman. You can tell him that, and it'll completely fucking mess him up. He said, where's your tip? How do I feel your tip? That was what was so different about a lot of people is they didn't know where, how to do it. I claim tip control is the most important, and I think it is. There's been some theories nowadays too, especially from champs. And look, I don't mind just really getting to tell you the way I feel, and I'm going to be pretty fucking transparent.
That's what we love.
But my delivery is, I think it's as old school as when Leo is to ever ride it in the Western Horseman. I think all steers are pretty much trapped. I'll use Corey Petska. I think he's a great guy that ropes great feet at certain times. People, nothing against Corey, but people say, well, it looks like Corey Petska ropes steers out of the air. Well, I say none of them are ever roped out of the air, and I still believe that to this day. I still think the loop principle works the same. It's tip, top strand, bottom strand. The angle you're swinging, the position you're riding to make your throw relatively easy. It's the same fucking thing that I do. We're all a little different. Cesar's style's a little different than Britt's. I'm a little different than Cleo or Jade or Patrick Smith or all these guys. But ultimately, we ride our horses to make our throws relatively easy, and that's to the inside where the business is done. We have a correct swing across the steer's left hip, and our fucking deliveries are all the same. We all do it the same. Nobody does anything different. Tip control, top strand stays in the right hock. The bottom strand, because of my angle on the swing and God-given gravity, takes care of my bottom strand. I don't fucking think about nothing else.
And
That's
laying
great.
back. Well, that's what I mean. I grew up listening to this guy. Like back in those days, it was a Super Looper magazine, and he would write. You know, they would talk to him, and he was the very best healer back then. So like he would write down all kinds of stuff. That almost every
Yeah.
we talk about.
I wanted to
champs.
share. I didn't know I was going to share then, but I'm glad it is. And my schools were successful, and I don't look back and try to find anybody that, oh, well, not this kid that I taught, he made it all the way to here. Makes me no difference. I left there wanting those people in those 3 days to be a better healer and to work on something from that point forward because they didn't really know. Because look here, why did I do it? I didn't fucking know when I was starting. My dad was a stock car race driver. My mom, she did whatever. Tim and Mark Fanning, they won the Bob Feist one year, years ago. Amateur guys in my area in Oklahoma that Tim was a hipper. They called him. He run to the hip every time. Mark roped 2 feet. They won the Bob Feist. And I went to Mark's school to begin with, and then I went to a couple of others. But I will say, again, as far as an escape and as far as roping a goat, because I think that you learn, I tell people goats don't necessarily teach you fundamentally correct things as far as loop placement, but my hand-eye speed and my hand-eye coordination and look, they'll wear this fucking word out in team roping schools, timing. And I tell everybody at my schools, that's the biggest excuse on the shirt. Why'd you miss that one? Well, I was out of time. No, there's no fucking sense.
Can you see the feet when the steer leaves the box? Can you visually spot the legs out?
Yeah, and I mean, I'll use I don't know, we'll use something musical, and I'm gonna get let's just get deep here. If I have a pendulum that's tuning a piano, yeah, or if I have a Buford, or if I have a Heliomatic, and all these names I'm using, I'm just telling you because if it all does the same thing, but how often am I gonna go, when you being a steer producer, breaking them in as long as you have, how often do you go somewhere that steer does that fucking same thing every time?
Very, very rarely.
And then these guys have got Joe with the brand new set of spurs that as soon as he ropes, he's like, well, you know, that'd be the healer saying, well, turn him loose so I can catch him. Well, the header said, well, he was loose when I caught him. Well, turn the motherfucker loose so I can, because he's worse now. But, you know, there's a lot of variables in the sport, and I tell that people all the time, but I think if you ride good, strong position, you have a fundamentally correct swing, delivery is real simple. And Leo said it. It's nothing more than a continuation of your swing. Hats off to the Lion. There's a lot of shit that he said that I don't read and I don't pay attention to, but I touch up on the shit that I think's most important. And tip control is where I go back to using the bucket. I want people to understand, look, if you pick that up and you're going front to back or left to right, you're going to spill feed or get water all over you. But
You
for
got
the
big circles.
But you have to control your tip. So you have to get elementary. That's just like with me. Like I said, I'm mechanically declined. I mean, all this time on the road, I don't know how to fix shit. And it's broken all the time, you know. But if, in fact, somebody told me, hey, well, you got to start here to kind of fix this, it would be better. So that was my purpose in teaching and being passionate about it. But it was all stemmed from, look, as far as finances, those schools are wonderful. They were great for us, and especially at that time. I'm not saying that social media skipped me or missed me. For the most part, maybe I'm kind of glad it did because there were some things socially that would have not been that agreeable to some of the things. But I had great sponsors. I had a great career. It owes me nothing. I do. Yeah, it does owe me something. I wanted to win the world. Reed tells this at maybe over the loudspeaker at the voiceover on this year's Mike Survey. So he says that I told him one time that winning second was kind of like kissing your sister. And I mean, it's old, but I used it. And he said it again. But yeah, 2 years in a row. And Cesar's went into the lead. And I went into the lead twice, which meant 7,500, a Crown Royal buckle. And that's about fucking it. And so when you leave there with just that, it's good.
It breaks your heart.
But I'm tore the fuck up about it. I still am mad. And my friend Tuff Hedeman, he just says, well, he'll introduce me a lot of times. Well, here's maybe the best healer to never win the world. Thanks, Tuff.
Well, my deal when I went in was a good friend of ours and Turtle Pal and Jet Johnson. Man, they went on a rampage the first couple rounds, and I could never catch them back after that. I lost the lead to NFR in 10 days, man. Me and Big A, we went in right from the very start. We Fort Worth and Austin. We from all year long, and we ended up winning Pendleton and doing good at Omaha. Like from the start to very finished, we right there regular season we were the best team, and then lost it in 2 rounds, man. Of NFR.
Oh yeah,
and we couldn't catch them guys. They won the average and won 3 rounds and like
yeah. I don't back in the day too. Even with Doyle, but you could ride the way that we came into the arena at the Mac was different. So early on, we rode down the side. So you could just, as they filtered in, they come in as money won or whatever contestant order it was that night. And so as I'm riding down through there, I'd kind of lean over and watch a little bit, and I'd be close. And you could see the runs. And it just as they were happening, I came in close enough to the lead. I'd be one of the last teams to go the first few nights. And if things didn't go well, you shuffled down each night, whatever their system was. But that was okay for a while until I just literally got sick and fucking tired of watching Speedy just well.
Those guys are so good, man.
I mean, I'm not gonna lie. I'm gonna be a transparent, not very good loser because I didn't like it. Charles Pogue and I, we were great all year. There wasn't a spot. Charles Pogue, many other occasions with Steve Northcott, who I admire as a healer to this day, is one of the greatest. But I will say that Charles, day in and day out, there's not a better header. There wasn't a better horse. There wasn't a better guy that scored sharp, roped all of his steers between the second light pole and the chute to be 5'7" or better. I mean,
back then that one everywhere.
I went everywhere thinking if I ride my horse decent and just hold the steer straight, I'm gonna be 5'5" every fucking time.
Sometimes win first, sometimes win third.
Every fucking
we're gonna
time.
win something everywhere.
And they just normally set up good. Yes, I want to be known as a healer that can catch a splashy, no good son of a bitch. I do want to be that guy because I have taken the time to learn to be a marksman with my position. And I want to be a fundamentally correct swing guy. But I want my loop, no matter what that somebody's doing, I can adjust. And that's a difference in a winner.
Mm-hmm.
So
for damn sure.
That's a difference.
You mentioned somebody. Who do you look up to? Like, who was something that this guy... I mean, you talked to a couple about Doyle and
visual aids too. Going back to that before I skip it too, and sometimes I get too talkative, but going back to visual aids, and you spoke of BFI tapes. Yes, I went to schools. Yes, I watched guys rope. Yes, I was provided with these things that my mother made sure I needed. But if I don't watch those BFI tapes from when they were outside, even at the Denton days when they had it there, if I don't start watching those guys like Rick Stock, I watched him a lot, and I watched Cleo, of course, because you just couldn't not watch. Right. He was just that wonderful, and he did things right. But the Rick Stocks, another super favorite person of mine, and probably maybe my first idol was Joel Maker, and he's as talented as a guy as there is. And as a matter of fact, he made the finals with George,
Uncle George. Yep. They did really good.
Yeah, he was an Indian guy from Oklahoma that is just as raw, talented, just beautiful. beautiful delivery. And I look at different guys' delivery. I think Wade Wheatley's a great horn roper. Bobby Harris, I think, is a precise healer. I think all these things when I think pretty loops and I think shit that like, all right, well, that's pretty standard or stationary. That's kind of a dig or a dive or a yard dart that works every so often with a bonus leg. But when I see pretty shit happening, we know it. We see it.
Man, I can remember staying up till 11 o'clock watching ESPN, watching you. I mean, because you BB and us, I mean, our names roll off the tongue like Wade Wheatley and Matt Tyler and those days, and then watching Cesar come up. I mean,
yeah, man, it's great. And again, I listened to Junior Nogueira talk the other day about the up and coming, and which I wish I paid more attention to it, but I'm not going to act like I don't. I know a lot of the younger guys. I know that Catch Kelton rope's great. I've been hearing great things about him. His partner Denton, who was here.
Danny. Yep.
They say the Camelot boy is a really talented kid.
Yep.
I like all that, but until they get at least 3 stars at the end of their jacket, I'm not that fucking impressed.
I'm as well. I grew
love
up in
kids coming up, but impress me later. I'm not into the, oh gosh, this guy's going to be the greatest. When they get that 3rd fucking star on the end of their jacket, on the end of that sleeve, then okay, hey, you know what? I'm going to watch you.
You got to prove it, man. Like it's a long. We talked about it a little while ago. To start at the beginning of the year and finish it off and make it to the finals, not only one time, but like you say, 3. That is something that's very, very difficult.
Yeah, Brent Lockett told me, and early on, he was like, "Hey, you don't want to just make it once." I'm like, "Okay."
No, you want to make it as many times as you can, man.
So I mean, my rookie year was '92. And I roped with a couple of different people throughout then. Started with Boder, roped with Shane Swanky a little bit, but missed making those finals by $1,596.23.
Ain't never gonna forget that.
Not to the penny, bro. And even called Doyle. Here's what's weird about that, because Doyle and I became what we call a household name team or whatever. But at that time, Doyle made them, and you could invite someone. That was 92. So I'm calling Doyle because I'm 16th. I'm calling Doyle, and I don't even know him. I'm like, hey, dude, this is Britt. I'm 16th. I know that don't sound very good, but if in fact you want to take me to the finals, let's do an 80-20 deal. You keep 80 or whatever we decide to do. At the time, I can't remember, and he didn't. The motherfucker roped with Cody Cowden.
Also legendary healer.
Yeah, exactly. Great. I mean, I don't blame him. Another beautiful loop thrower, another fundamentally correct guy. Yes. But yeah, the motherfucker roped with Gordy. So I'm pissed off. And then we go back and talk about and laugh about it later, because we did break a record. The first year we made the finals, we were 4-1. I was riding a little sorrel horse that I rode through my high school rodeos that come from a guy named Richard Stowers. And as far as breeding, he was a reining horse. He was reining horse breeding. And I'm bad to not keep up with too many pedigrees, because I rode what I could win on. I rode what felt good. Yeah. And so I rode that horse in 94. We were 4.1. And which had broken the record, which was 4.2 maybe. I don't even remember at the time. And then Doyle at that time said, well, man, that's great. And he always talks like this. He talks real quiet. And he just said, well, that'd be nice if, in fact, that we could, break that 4-second barrier in B3. I said, well, let's do it next year. And I'll be damned if we didn't come back. And he was riding a bay mare that he called Angie. And she had a knee just as big as a beat-up tire. It was huge, but she scored so sharp, and she let him win. And he rode her all year long and just did some great things and spun one off. And I would probably say that I semi-crossfired. It was just I was in the way. Somebody was in the way. Harry was flagging. Nothing against you, Harry, but you've missed several, and you need to be better at your fucking job.
But that one, he did let that one go, right?
He did let one. Thank you so much. It held for 10 years. It was good. I don't need to show you no fucking replays. We're all good.
When you made the finals 13 times, was there how many consecutive? Or what?
I made them 12 in a row.
Wow.
And then skipped a year, and then come back and made them one more.
That's crazy.
Yeah, so it owes me nothing. It was great to me. I met some of the most unbelievable people in the world. I mean, from country music artists to my friendships with Tough, and I know that his name's brought up a lot, but he's an icon in this sport and
Hell
business.
yeah.
He's a guy that helped a lot. He's got a friend of his named Ron Pack that showed me some things as far as early on with my endorsements, and for not having the social media, not that I walked to school in 6 foot of snow, but for not having the social media access then, I did good.
Yeah.
I did the right things because my mother said, look, hey, look, you're going to get a lot further in life by being kind, shaking hands, using the word ma'am and sir, and opening the fucking door.
Yes, sir.
So, that's what she instilled in me. And to this day, I try hard. There's been many chapters in between that either are good to talk about or not good to talk about. But at this point, I'm as transparent as shit. I did a lot of dancing with some different things, and I learned. I don't regret a whole lot, but there's avenues that I wish I wouldn't have chosen. But it didn't hurt my career. People always wonder that, and I'm going to clear that up right now today on the Tolleson-Mack, is that my recreational pharmaceutical issues was never a part of any part of my career. I was done with what I did. It didn't matter. My sponsors, I respected them and what I did for them. And so I choose to do what I do. I live the way I live without excuses, but I was pretty much slowed down. I wouldn't say that it helped my relationships any at all with any ladies, because I'm not going to win a Grammy for Husband of the Year by any means, but I did what I did. I lived the way I lived. And, again, I'm pretty thankful for it now. I'm thankful for the sport. I'm thankful for my talent. And I'm thankful for all the people that helped me along the way, those believers that aren't crickets, because there's a lot that are. There's those that want to maybe act like a fake help, and then they want to talk bad about you, and then when you get upon them, they stop, like crickets.
Yeah.
So, but it's great. It's a great sport. I would tell people to be brought up in it. It keeps kids out of trouble.
Absolutely. I'm living proof.
Yeah, I mean, he lived in the hood, and I'd see him at Tucson, and he would holler at me from the fence, and I would see this. All I would see was ears. That's it. I would see ears, and he would climb up on the fence, and he would say hello to me, and those things I remember probably more than winning Salinas or winning Dodge City 5 times or winning Cheyenne. I'll want to remember those times now more than anything else.
I don't know what happened to it. I lost it throughout when I was a kid, but they used to have roping cards and bull riding cards. I had Tough sign it, you know what I mean? I had Brit sign it, Cody Cowd, and all these guys, they had their own it's like the little baseball playing cards, right? Mm-hmm. And yeah, man, I'd go over there and have Brit sign my card, and he'd come over every time, man. If I ever got to the top, that's kind of how I do it. Is be cool, like all my heroes were cooler than shit, you know. The Cowdens, the Steve Northcott, Brit. I can plan on them guys coming over, and
I get still amazed too that again, those times that I maybe took it for granted and was just kind of rolling with whatever I needed to do to get to the next one, but I didn't realize how many people we touch, how many lives that are involved in healing. But then you look at the numbers and all that they've done has grown. But even at that time, I look back and think, you know what? There's a lot of cool things happen. I've had some guys write me. Some kids have written and drawn a team roping picture with stick figures. And at that time, maybe I looked at it a little differently, and I apologize probably not for reacting as much as I should. But I look back and think, you know what? I had a talent, and that maybe 3% will ever probably get to do that ever want to swing a heel rope.
Telling you, man,
right?
It's very small percentage. Like I said, if you're gonna want to go to the pro rodeo level, you're at the 15 percenters is what you want to be. 100 teams start the whole year long, and 15 make the NFR.
And that's like you said, them 3 stars. That's even just smaller. You know what I mean? Like that's even smaller than 3% at that point.
Yeah, man. It does, and then become a habit, and then. The thing about it is, I like that habit then. Yeah.
You're accustomed to it.
And I'll say it's different now. I'll say it's tougher. I wouldn't want to probably say, hey, I cannot wait to go to Odessa. And maybe with Caleb Driggers.
Yeah, for sure. But
Derek Begay put me up. I'm ready to go. And I've lost a step. I'm not going to say that I heal as good as I did when I was 25. But I know that Cesar and I both, without having to watch him run any or me either, I don't think that we're going to have any problem slapping hawks as many times in a row as we want to.
Yeah. For
yeah,
sure.
it doesn't go away for sure.
Not really, not yet.
As many goats as
Not
we've
yet.
roped, man. I tell you what,
Yeah.
it comes out, especially when you follow the steers. I was telling people, you want to rope the goat and rope the dummy so much that it comes out of your right hand. Like you
Yeah.
don't have to think about it. You're focusing on your left hand and your legs and putting that horse in the perfect position every time.
Yeah.
Because once you do, you just put the bottom strand on the
I
ground.
didn't train, and I never did train. I was fortunate enough to I was able to work for JD Yates for nearly 24 years, probably 25 years, what they call the November catch rider. Well, I named it that, but Jay Wadhams is always there. I had a great group of people that I got to hang out with and learn a lot through the horse show business, which has really gotten big
Taken
now.
off.
Paid zero attention to it, but what little bit I paid, it looks like it's big. A lot of
Huge.
breeding, a lot of guys are getting involved, other than just like the ostrich business. Not just more wealthy people are owning some decent horses. They're trying to make it right, and they're judging it a little bit different, which I always wanted them to, because it just, even the greatest trainers in the world, your hats off to Robbie Schroeder, Gary Wells, Bobby Lewis. I'll pop these names. Those are trainers. Those are guys that are
Horseman, man.
they're the best at what they do. I don't want to have to do their job. I mean, I tried to work for Gary for a couple of years, and we horse showed and did some things, but every morning have to think about getting up and throwing your leg over 12 or 13 3-year-olds that they do nothing you fucking want them to. And
They're just babies.
That's zero fun. I'm like, but that was the thing about training. I could finish and I could catch on shit. And I could catch on shit because, well, Tulsa horse sale was every Monday. My dad would go to several other different horse sales. And why he did, I don't know, but he'd bring stuff home. And then this stuff that he brought home, you went and got on it. And so whether they want to rub you off on the fence or be decent or run like a dry creek, you still had to ride them. And I tell people that. I tell people that my healing, maybe it is, because there's certain people that'll just buy great and get on a good horse. I like that idea too. But again, what I think makes a person like Cesar or myself be able to catch something not so good or doesn't look so fancy to heel is because we did ride some difficult shit, you know?
Yeah.
We presented a shot that we really don't want to take, but in order to catch and have fun or do whatever we was doing at the time growing up, that's what we did.
You put us on a really good horse.
Yeah.
It's lights out. You know, we
I like
can
it.
catch that steer.
Yeah, and that's the thing. I mean, I didn't really have the ammunition when I first started when Boater called. I was at school. So I went to Southeastern Oklahoma State, graduated with a communications degree, but I am in my third year of college. And Boater calls me. This is 94. So Boater calls me, and I think it's a joke because, I mean, I watch NFR tapes, the old Heston days, and I'm like, Boater's the guy that I always want to rope with. Every healer thinks, oh, who am I going to rope with at the NFR?
That's why I started my career with.
Yeah, who? So I'm like, Boater's decent. He'll take 1, 2. I liked his mustache, handlebar deal. He just was a cool dude, and he was, from Kansas, whatever. So he calls me, and I'm like, hello, and he goes, and he's kind of bland when he speaks, but he's a strong, stout. He's a sensible man, but he just talks kind of quiet. He goes, hey, this is Brett. Do you want to rope this next year? And I'm like, who the fuck is he? Who is this? I'm in college. Somebody's jacking with me, but it really was. It was Brett. And I made a decision to go that year, and that was the year that I didn't make it. And then I had to take the next year, which was 93, to go back and work in the oil field that my mom and my dad was running at the time. And I started pulling some wells and wrenching some rods at about 104 degrees with about 60, or more % humidity. And I thought, you know what? I need to heal better. And so I did.
Man,
That's what I did.
didn't miss.
That's what I did.
Whenever the steer turned, it was 2 feet.
Yeah. Yeah. And again, wouldn't say I chiseled my way to that point. Things came easy, but I was determined and passionate about trying to do it the right way. And look, I like to catch. That's what I tell people too. I'm like, at the schools, I'll get a kick out of it because I'll have some guy being so redundant with one fucking problem. He might be riding great position. He might do this, but he's just not getting his delivery where it needs to be. So finally he'll get it, and he'll rope 2 or 3 in a row. And I'm like, hey, when you get tired of catching, just go back to fucking delivering it out there about 6 o'clock. Get tired of catching.
Man, I needed it. I felt better when I caught a steer by 2 feet. You know what I mean? Like when I had a good set of steer, practicing, I caught everything by 2 feet. I felt good that day. Like,
Yeah.
It was made me angry to I don't know if it makes sense. I hated to lose more than I like to win. I know you talked about you like to win first all the time. I hate to lose. I hate to miss a steer. I hate to it's a feeling in my heart. When I caught the steer by 2 feet and I did all my job, I feel like
my arena etiquette was never very good. And I mean, I know that again, there's times that I would, and for instance, just if Clay was there, because we want to pattern ourselves after champions, and we want to, but Cesar has his own style. I for one, have my own style, regardless of whether it's what we wear, what we did, or how we did it. But I wanted to be better in the arena, but I just couldn't. I was a horrible loser. I didn't like it. I showed shit that I shouldn't showed. I threw my rope times. I was upset with my header probably when I shouldn't be. Sorry about that, guys, but I was a mad motherfucker when you missed.
Want to heal one, man.
Yeah, I'm sorry. Everybody wants to win. I know, but
I need it to live through the day. I need a heel shot.
But it was just, and I know it is a team sport, and my partners were all great. Every one of them was really, truly a big, intricate part of my chapter in my book. And
Cesar rattle off 4 or 5 different. I mean, you've won everything. Give us one rodeo, maybe one that we wouldn't think of, maybe not a main one, but something that so surprised the people that you like going to every year. And then give us one that you didn't like going to every year that you had to go to.
I'll tell you right now, I didn't like Silver City, New Mexico.
Silver City. So.
Tell us why.
I have no idea why, but Cheesy would always enter me in Silver City. I'm like, I do not want to go to Silver City. And I'll tell you another thing too. It's not an amateur level because they have events there, but I never went to the stockyards much. Okay, and I couldn't wait for many different ulterior motives. But I could not wait to go to the stockyards. So Saturday night, everybody's going to the stockyards. Well, I just don't catch very good there. I don't know if, in fact, maybe I could have been
in the lights.
But it's just I don't like going. I've hit more in the ass. I've been late in the box. I've looked like I might have been, a little wired up at a time or two. But whatever it was, I don't rope good at Fort Worth, and I don't care what anybody thinks. I just don't catch good there. Everywhere else, I seem to catch good. But that was always good to me. I was always excited about going to the Feist. I really, truly was. Since 92. That was my very first Bob Feist, and I roped with Boder there, and we won second behind Rick Steed and Greg Bennett. So I was on a little horse called Little Wicked at the time, and then we placed second. I can't remember what happened in 93-4, and then I started roping with Charles. I bought a horse off of our future mayor from Camp Verde, Tanner Bryson, and B-Cross Rope Horses. His name was Tamale, and Tamale was just a weird, quirky dude that would turn around the box. At times you didn't need him, but other than that, he was pretty solid. I mean, he could just run as hard as one could. But I won the Feist on him, and then I come back in the repeat year, which was the first year to maybe anybody to come back and repeat with Charles. I rode a horse that I bought off of Corey Kuntz. His name was Dollar, and I literally had to give him a little mellow yellow an hour before the first round, a little bit after the third round. And then when I was high call, I gave him a little more ace right before that. Maybe too much, veterinarians, but I still won the Feist on it.
Whatever it takes.
Whatever it took. But he needed to be slowed down because Corey told me, he said, hey, you can't whip this horse. He'll just run and hit a fence.
Don't whip him.
So I was mad at him one time. And Corey already told me, Corey's a man of few words. Hats off to the healer, to himself, but he said, hey, don't whip him. I did one day, and I'm telling you what, this Tolleson-Mack running straight and as hard as he could to these double gates and just T-boned this motherfucker. I called Corey. I said, he's right. You said don't whip him. I told you, Brett.
I sold a heel horse to Junior to get a little Lucky Bucky. Won the BFI on him a few weeks ago.
Oh, yeah, cool.
Same one.
Cool.
Do not.
Cool.
Try to avoid whipping.
Yeah, man, some of them don't like it. I never did go that way. Yeah, but I had good horses. I seem to have either purchased them for the most part or ran across them. When I started, I won a horse. Steve and I won the 2-back roping when it had first moved to Tucson to the rodeo grounds. And that was when it was winter take all. It was 18,000 a man. I was on a horse called Blue Goose. I was on a horse called Blue Goose. And Blue Goose was a horse. I don't even remember where I bought that sucker, but he was a little pin-headed, blue roan. But I didn't give a shit at the time because at that time I wasn't buying him to work. I was buying him because he had a long mane and he was a blue roan. And I get by. I went by on a corner a couple times, but we won the roping. Cheesy was on a horse that belonged to Logan Stevens. And so then that year passed, and I sold those horses and knew what was better. Kind of kept having some good luck finding some. Another little horse come along, and then I come back and won the Survey again on another horse from Iowa that belonged to another guy named Tim. And it was the year that it rained, so that was a Survey. That was the year that rained. I had a garbage bag on my head for some reason the whole time. I did. I went and got one of those just out of the. Of course, they had just cleaned at Tucson over there by where all the kids hang out by the snow cone stand. Well, I went and got me a garbage bag, and I just had this motherfucker this do-ragged around there. I know they got that one too. That had to have been taped. I know Reed taped that one, but they'll talk about that often. The Okie that had the garbage bag that won it. But again, that was with Charles, and there was a lot of days off with Charles. Charles scored smart. Charles ran to a position to make his throw, and he caught 99% of the time, but it was still good.
Easy.
It was still good.
Easy healing.
Yeah, right. It was still good. And I like rope with reachers too. Like when I started roping with Doyle, I like a reacher.
Yeah.
I don't mind. I'm gonna be one that cuts into the corner. I'm not necessarily. I mean, you see new age guys or guys that'll ride around the corner a little bit and maybe be straight behind them and ride higher position today. I'm an inside guy. I'll head for the left hip most every time and just kind of drive by. If they're out in front of me, fine. But there's a spot within 4 foot that I'm pretty fucking deadly to get both feet in the back, and I like it when their legs cross, like way up high, and I like to get a bell.
Yeah. Make them really bad.
I like to bell her a little bit, but it's been good to me, yeah, man. So, but there's a lot of things that change, and again, I wish it were better all the way around. I mean, for everyone. I think that I wish that the prize money would be just phenomenal. I don't know how that system works in business, but yeah. I'm in the Northeast now. I rodeo up there in the First Frontier Circuit. There's a great group of guys that I run across. A lot of cool things have happened. After an injury that I had, I started roping with a guy, and 18 weeks in a row, at a place called Woodstown Powell's Grove. The Cowtown Rodeo is every Saturday night, so it's a PRCA rodeo. They need to add more money. They can add more money because it's $25 a head, and they average $6,000 every Saturday.
I've been there one time.
So if we just take 3% of that and put it back towards all the events, you'll be the best rodeo in the Northeast. Just saying. But with that being said, this rodeo is 18 weeks in a row.
Wow.
So every Saturday night, I'm talking about I bet they got 9 acres over here that just is the ultimate tailgate party. Yep. Cops are always coming in. They're shooting fireworks out of their big neon lifted fucking trucks. They're having a great time. The stands are filled with standing room only, and they have this same rodeo every Saturday with normally the same contestants. And there's Eric Fabian, there's Derek Carey, there's a partner that I roped with named Darren Morgan. There's guys that rope good, real good. But the competition level is probably not as steep as it would be here because they haven't had to be as good.
Yeah.
That's the only way I look at it up there. It's not that they're not capable, but with weather, with their jobs, and with not being able to travel to the points that they need to economically, they stay there. And I know why, because I did it. I went the whole 18 weeks at Woodstown one year. I made the finals a couple of times with a guy. I was a healer for hire, so to speak. I lived in Pennsylvania at this beautiful place, and I got to do these things again, which healing has brought to me. So, I mean, still at 53, I'm going to say I heal for a living, and I don't want to change. And yeah, there's other things in my life. Tanner's got this trail ride business up there, and we were busy most of spring break season, and they'll have maybe 80 to 100 riders a day. I totally enjoyed that. I really did. We go on an hour and a half cowpoke ride. I found it comfortable. I got to visit. And the more you visit, the more you get tipped. I mean, it was on a tip deal. It made me appreciate, because look, I hadn't had a real fucking job in my life. I healed take that back. For 38 days, I was a welder's helper. And I just did this to prove a point to my first wife. And I'm sorry, Angie, for all this shit. But I did get this job just in spite. Because like, hell, I can get a job. Well, a buddy called me that was on the pipeline. He was a welder. He said, there's an opening in Guthrie, Oklahoma. So I know Mark and Charlotta Fanning. I'm going to stay right across from the E. I'm going to work these. Well, it's 7-Elevens. I'm like, that's a quick trip. That's normally where I stay. What is 7-Elevens? And I was like, well, you work 7 days, 11-hour days. I'm like, ooh, how bad do I want to, piss everybody off? But I did. I got that job for 38 days. At the end of that 38th day, I was in a hole, and it was 32 degrees, but it was colder than mother-in-law's love. It felt way fucking colder than that. And I got this FR material that cost $90. It's I don't know. It's hot. It's cold to me. And these steel toe boots again that I'm just freezing in. I'm like, fuck it. Tomorrow I'm flying to Vegas to rope at the World Series. I was just basically probably going for the party, but I did enter. I don't remember who I was roping with at the time, but as soon as I got to Vegas, I'm like, I'm not going back to work. I don't really like work that much.
You probably went and hung out with Hort Dog over there.
But we did, yeah. I hung out with Hort Dog. But I enjoyed everything I did, you know. So it's been good to me.
Yeah. Man, the horse. I always talk about Brandon, and you know, we talk about horses all the time, and it's like the horse has kind of saved my life, man. You talked about your career and roping, and even now you're talking about the trail ride, and you go the horse, man.
Yeah, right.
Love of the animals.
Another thing that
Kept you.
I often think back on if driving, and I think age does this. You know, I think that you sit back and think, you know, I rode a horse for transportation for so many years. Yes, I loved him. I treated him good. Cesar, for one, treats his real good. And I think that, again, sometimes it's therapeutic. I mean, I see Cesar with his, and some of mine, I notice myself doing it more. Cesar's always been one with his cat, whatever allowed him to go win. And you saw that in their appearances. You know, I mean, his horses looked fucking sharp. Everybody wanted to do what Cesar was doing or ride one like he was doing because of the cool mane. He stopped hard and he had some cool gear on him. So, and I did the same.
What about that buckskin horse? What was that?
My buckskin was good. Senior Hot Wheels, Senior Patas Caliente.
That horse.
Yeah, he was good. I bought him from Steve Purcell. Jesse Valdez is a guy that had him down there on the feedlot. I think a lot of times good horses will have some feedlot history because it's just a job.
Yeah.
You know, it's just monotonous for them. But if they normally are turning out to be a good kind of a feedlot horse, but Jesse Valdez had him, and then Steve bought him, and then Steve was healing, of course, and Steve will probably watch this too. But Steve, you know, he thinks he's the best healer in the world. Is Steve Purcell? He heals. He'll tell you that he heals real good, but and he does. He heads great. He ropes a lot of necks, but he told me that that they'll never pull their heads off. He's seen them pull their horns together, but he ropes a lot of necks because he said, I swear they'll never pull their heads off. So, but I roped with him enough to know that when he got this horse, I'd seen him healing good, and it's just a buckskin that looked as user friendly as could be, and he was cute. So yeah, I try him a time or two, and I tell you what, the only fault he did have was I claim that he runs like a dry creek. He just ran enough. You know, I placed on Cheyenne out. I never rode him at the Feist because he could just run enough, you know. But I won the average on him at the finals that year with Charles. But he always did his job. He's always did the inside. He never took my throw away from me. He never made me get too close. It was just one of those ones that I call them user friendly. They were just something I enjoyed to ride every time because, again, it made winning easy, and winning was what I had to do at the time. So, yeah.
Brandon, you want to take a little bit of a break? We'll maybe crack open another Rat Bastard and get another bottle of water. And we'll go for part 2 with Britt Bockius.
Yeah.
Here we are with the Tolleson-Mack podcast part 2 with Britt Bockius and Brandon Brown in the house. And thank you so much for being here, Britt. We're going to...
Yeah, man, this is my first one. I've been wanting to do one. You know, I mean, I really have. And
I need to do more, dude.
Yeah, I know. We need to do some more. We will. And and I'm close enough to next couple of weeks. Maybe we can shoot another one with somebody else, and we'll all do it. But I'd enjoy it because it is a little bit of my background. I'd like to lean more towards that. People always say, well, you know, you got a wasted talent. You should announce rodeos. I mean, I had fun with it back in the day. I used to make up stuff. I was announcing T. Squatney Woman from somewhere in Oklahoma. And Bobby Harris was a bigger man then, but he always told me that you have to be heavy to heel. So I said, well, Bobby Harris from Gillette, you bet they fed me Wyoming. So, I mean, I would say all this funny yeah, I would say funny shit, but they always want me to kind of say, well, you know, you should announce. But yeah, I mean, I enjoy it. I like the field. I don't mind it, but it's just like with anything else. If I'm ready to be committed to it, I think I will. But I don't know. I don't know where it's taking me now because, like I said, I'm still healing. I'm in the Northeast. I go up there and I rodeo for about 18 weeks and I rodeo with people that I enjoy. I go to the same spot like I was telling you about the Cowtown rodeo. Now I'll go to Cowtown for the first 4 weeks. And July 1st, I go to upstate New York, where my friend Jakey Edwards is from. I stay at his place.
Oh, Jake, yeah.
I stay at Jakey's place, and they take care of me there. And then what we'll do is that what's really cool is that just north of Albany, you can go to 4. You can go to 4 a weekend for like 15 weeks straight. You start at Broad Almond on Thursday. They'll have a rodeo. Then you go to the amateur rodeo at the Painted Pony, which is in Lake Luzerne. That's a Wednesday, Thursday. And then Friday and Saturdays, 2 separate pro rodeos. So Friday's a rodeo and Saturday's a rodeo. So this last year, I mean, I'm in upstate New York. And I mean, I stay 15, 20 minutes from the arena. They're all within 45 minutes. And yeah, I still feel really competitive, you know. So
For all the people that don't know, it's beautiful in the summertime up there.
it's really great.
Real
It's a neat place to go heal. And we always, and people always ask this probably of Cesar as well, about where'd you go and how'd you travel? You've seen all these beautiful things. And we did from January to September, but 8 years into that, January and September, to the same fucking places. Yes, they were beautiful. I was blessed to be there, but I didn't get to see Levant, Maine.
Yeah.
There's a rodeo in Levant, Maine. There's a rodeo in Cumberland, Maine.
Gary, New York.
Yeah, I mean, I went to places now that I'm like, you know, I went to Rock Harbor. I went and had a lobster roll while I was waiting for the slack, you know. I mean, there's just,
That's cool.
and it's just cool, you know. And so, and it's a good group of people. I know that sometimes the first frontier is often maybe looked at as the lighter circuit, the guys that don't do as good, but they're my people. It's my circuit now. I enjoy them, and they rope just as good as they need to.
Me and my wife went to New York City to Manhattan for our very first time ever going to New York, and people had never been. I mean, we didn't go up to upstate or see the country. We were just in Manhattan, but it was just a different world, and I'm so happy that I went. Like it was,
Yeah,
enjoyment.
it's really cool up there. Like I said, my deal now, because the lusters weren't off the travel, and I don't want to have to go anything over 4 or 5 hours. Period. I don't like it. I don't want to do it. So those are all pretty close. I get to still heal competitively. It gives me something to want to be good at, you know, where I can be complacent. I'm a complacent man sometimes, where I'll say, you know what, but I think that it still allows me to stay challenged, because I want to beat everybody that I fucking go against every time. And I'm not necessarily against everyone, but when I leave there, I want to be the fucking best.
And you show up over there, you got more street cred than fucking 18 county wide.
I think they've lost track.
Yeah.
They've lost track of it. Yeah, but
Yeah.
man, just a good group of people always, and I hopefully the First Frontier Circuit gets better every year, and there's management changes and whatever needs to be done. But I like the circuit system, you know. But I miss the jackpotting a little bit. But I think I'm a 9 now. I don't even know. I haven't bought my card. I came to Arizona 3 winters ago, and I did the slide thing, and I tell people this. So, well, how'd you do in Arizona? I'm like, well, you know what? I did pretty good. I might have won 12,000. I spent 8 to win 12.
Yeah.
But I'm telling you right now, I don't want to have to rope that fucking good no more. I don't want to have to do it that good no more, because
They don't mess around over here in the slides.
every one of them, bro. Just you had to ride to the end of it, where I wasn't too comfortable. I like to go 2 jumps. I was having to throw quicker, and it's not comfortable. So
It'll knock your confidence down when a straight 13 team will wear your ass out over there.
yeah, man, I'm
They
okay.
catch pretty good around here. The
Yeah,
13 team's pretty good over here, man.
Yeah, I'm okay with them calling my name somewhere in Connecticut if I need to be 7'5". Just let me enjoy that, and then we can go have a snow cone when I got it.
You talk about Jake, you know, he's made his way out here, out west, you know, from that place. And he's doing good around here. I mean,
He's a talented kid, you
seen
know.
him in
And again,
Texas a lot.
I'm pretty careful about, and when asked, I think people often maybe think that I'm a prick. But if such and such says, well, does Denton Dunning heel good? Yeah, Denton Dunning heels good. I think he's a very, very skilled young athlete, and he's going to do good. Hopefully, great. Camelot, all of them. But until I'm really thought that they're proven. You know.
but I mean, that's what in Jake's sense, he kind of, you said a little bit lighter over there. Him coming to Texas is kind of proven. He's trying to prove.
Yeah, man. And he, you know,
way you're
here's the thing too. And I'll say this, and I tell this at my schools, and I've said it from the very beginning. You always rope with your clientele.
Yeah.
It never hurts to go. And I think Cesar had the opportunity to do that. Everybody that ropes pretty good now that you see mainstream, they were normally roping with somebody or around somebody that did it as good or better.
Yeah.
You know,
For sure.
you
Uncle
know?
George and Uncle
Yeah.
Victor and all them guys were always around me. And he always had the best healers come over to practice and rope. And I'm like, man, I got to see it at the highest level from a little bitty.
I think that's where sometimes it stays stale, is that people don't position themselves to go try to be better or rope better around somebody, and they don't know how to function their practice. And those things all came to me and unfolded the way they should have. Why, I don't know, but it happened the right way. And I thank those that made it happen.
We're gonna stay on the rodeo talk a little bit, and one of my favorite all-time stories, and I laugh about it every time I hear somebody else's version of it, right? And you say this is the first time podcasting right here. I want to hear the story, and you can start from the very beginning. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
I like how it all. You guys were sprightly, showing up over there, ready to rope at Lakeside, and
Yeah.
just it. Yeah,
I want to thank Professional's Choice again for many great years of endorsements. I do. I know that their main place is in El Cajon, California, which is right near there. They did call me, management or HR. Let's just go with HR. Might have called me after the fight and said, "Hey, look, you as an endorsee probably don't want to do that again." I wasn't wearing the shirt. I never wore a shirt to the bar that had any monogram because I knew that there was something that might happen. So I don't wear the shirt, but then it was just too close to Dow, Monte Chris, all those guys at Professional's Choice that had just done a pretty good job of making sure that Britt's name was out there. So I respect that. Then the next day they'd called and said, and they told me that. And I was like, "Yes, sir, it'll never happen again." And he goes, "I just wanted you to know," and this is before we start the story. He said, "I just wanted you to know that bar is just because San Diego, of course, is Navy SEAL.
It's a military.
When you think of San Diego, you think, hey, yeah, man, great. The Chargers and Navy SEALs and their training and what they do." Well, this fucking bar just happens to be their spot. So, I mean, when the SEALs get done at San Diego, they might drive to this little old spot in between El Cajon and Lakeside and go hang out. Well, that just happened to be where 8-10 of us that had just been to Tijuana all day, and just decided we wanted to come back. Steve Priscilla, my partner at the time, decided, hey, I'm not going to. He'll always say that he's quite a bit smarter for that, and he was at that time. Not all the time, but he told me not to go, and I'm like, I'm going to the bar. So we ended up going to the bar. Another friend of mine named Troy Murray had a cowboy hat on, and we were having a pretty decent time. And I can remember the bar being pretty open, and then on the other side there were some pool tables, and then on out back is kind of maybe the smoking section, but it was a pretty good area as well. So I had made my way with a drink, and I'm scrolling and looking around just like I normally would. I'm plenty drunk by the time I get there at this point. So we get in there, and there's this guy. Eventually he comes up there to me, and I can remember being kind of standing above him. And BJ Campbell was the nearest tough guy that I was going to call upon during this time. And this is how BJ fits into this story. So we go in this bar. This one guy's kind of being stupid and ignorant. You can tell he's a city guy. In the front main bar, let me not forget to tell you about the Samoan bartender. I mean, he's large. He's big enough to burn diesel. He's a big man. And they say don't fuck with Samoans, period. They're right. You don't want to fuck with Samoans. So he's up front. We go on around. Here's a pool table. Here's this guy that looks over at me and goes, "Hey, you know what? I don't like these cowboy hats up in here." And I'm like, oh. Just drunk enough that at that time, my oaky ass had just overloaded my mouth. And I'm like, well, I tell you what, for 100, I got a guy that'll whip your ass that's wearing a cowboy hat. And I mean, I know BJ's, hell, his record's whatever. he hasn't lost.
He's really good.
Pretty scrappy. He likes to fight. I'll give him that. He not only ropes good, he fights good. And I knew that.
Equally as good.
And I had Tanner Bryson with me. I had Turtle Powell with me. I myself am not a fighter, but I thought I was at the time. Tough Hedeman told me, he said, and a guy named Ron Pack said, he said, well, you think you're a bad son of a bitch until you get your ass whipped good just one time if you get it really whipped good. And that was it. That's what it took. That took from me to thinking I could really fight to, nah, I'm not that good. Nah. But anyway, we get in there, and I tell this guy that has a problem with this hat, as the way I remember it, just nearly verbatim. He tells me he doesn't like that hat. And I said, well, I got 100 here that says this fucker over here in this hat can whip you. And I holler at BJ at the time. And so BJ, he comes over there, and he's just as casual as can be. And this guy don't look very big. I mean, he looks like somebody BJ can take, but just one punch like BJ sometimes does. Well, I look over at him, and I said, well, here's the guy. And I said, BJ, this guy said he doesn't like hats. And about that time, BJ's just like, looks, and I kind of figured what he was doing. He's sizing this motherfucker up because BJ was quick about it. BJ starts to take off his coat, and when he gets to just over the shoulder on the right arm, this fucking BJ comes with one and just kind of glazes. And from that glaze, that eventually led to my glaze because I kind of glanced across there and tried to pick the smallest guy out. I'm looking for Cesar. I'm looking for Cesar that I can whip. Yeah. Well, there's another guy playing pool, and he must have been friends with the guy that didn't like the cowboy hat. Well, as BJ's trying this motherfucker on and kind of glazed him on the first punch, because if he'd hit him, it'd killed him. This fight escalates. This guy comes over, knocks the piss out of me across my right brow, just splits me open. I lay underneath the pool table, which that's when BJ said that I had started it and hid under the pool table. I didn't have a fucking choice but to lay under there. The guy split my fucking head open and it hurt. So I lay there for a minute. And then when I get up, I'm telling you, it is just as escalated as can be. The fight is happening. I mean, it is going on. There's one going on over here. There's this chaos going over here. Here's Blaine Lineweaver. Here's another friend of mine, Mikey Fletcher. They're all around. And it's just complete chaos. Well, I'm kind of coming too. When I walk out, the first guy that I see is Tanner. Well, Tanner can box. I mean, he can kind of stand up and box and spit around like he's, Rocky Balboa a little bit. He got his fingers and thumbs out like he's quick-handed, but he's really not. But here's this guy in this, of course, they're tan dickies, and he's got a wife beater shirt on. He's got some prints on, and he's got he's a Spanish man.
You could say he's Mexican.
Well, he's Mexican, all right? And he's a quick, hard-hitting Mexican. Because Tanner would be back there a couple times, and he'd roll up there and act like he was going to hit it. And normally Tanner can connect at least once, and then this fucking guy go whoop 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 whoop. And Tanner just be racked back out of that son of a bitch.
Got to catch his bearings.
He just was right back out of it because Tanner knew, see, I can't stand here with this fucking guy. And then every time Tanner just get a little more confidence, and he think, and I watched this fight the whole time because it's Tanner, it's my bud. All right, so he backs up again, takes to this little cholo, and whoop, 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 whoop. Tanner backs back out of this. Next thing you know, he split across his forehead. And then it's just all chaos. Well, by the time it all kind of had settled, I see Blaine Lineweaver. He's got a chair holding it up like he's the lion tamer. He's trying to talk to some guy. There was 2 people went to jail. I do believe it might have been Mikey and it might have been Blaine. This is the way the story's happening. I'm telling you live today on Tolleson-Mack. This is the fucking way it went down. All of that shit happens. Tanner gets his ass whipped. BJ gets a concussion. This guy continues, whoever's whipping on this motherfucker. And then there's poor Turtle. And then there's poor Turtle. So Turtle is a fighter. Turtle is a great fighter. Turtle was brought up doing it. And it didn't take much to get him to do it. So we're all in there. We'd all done the festivities that afternoon that allowed a man to be bold. So when we get over there, by the time I get to Tanner, he had already been just literally beat to death. Literally. And the reason why I say this is because after it was all said and done, Tanner and I end up at what I call the inside bar. And I'm telling you, the Samoan had cleared the first bar by himself. I don't know how many guys were up there between Joseph Shonago and Troy Murray and them guys, but the fucking Samoan made his way with many. Samoan, you're a bad motherfucker. Now, with that being said, I end up right next to Turtle on 2 bar stools. He looks at me and he goes, literally, he goes, Britt, he said, you need to go. Your face is fucking bleeding, fucking covered in blood. And I shit you not, bro, his fucking jaw is just hanging off his fucking face. And I'm like, me? I don't need to go nowhere, motherfucker. Your mouth is hanging off your face. And he's just talking to me, but this one he's tangled with was no joke. To the point, and this is a true story, to the point that the girlfriend of the guy that was just taking it to Turtle with his boots, Turtle was out, and this guy was just booting him. Just 1, 2. This girlfriend finally had to jump over the top of Turtle, and she looked up at him and she goes, whatever his fucking name was, Killer is what I'm gonna call him. He looks up, she goes, stop it, you're gonna kill him. You're gonna kill him. And that was the only way that this motherfucker stopped. And then Turtle later, 6 weeks later, was jaw broken, feeding with a straw. I felt horrible. I really did. I'm sorry, Turtle, for that. I started the fucking fight. It was me, but I didn't tell you to do it either. I didn't tell you to stand there and fight, but he would, no matter what. You know, and that's just what guys do. That's the way it happened.
Did the guy get his $100?
You know what? I wanted to pay him at the end, but Tanner and I ended up in the emergency room together. We did. Next thing is just curtains, and then I look over it, and I'm like, "There's Tanner," and he's got basically the same stitches coming across this side as I do this side, and we're just sitting there. But that next morning, Steve Purcell, of course, he's like, "You dumb son of a bitch! I told you not to go to the bar." I'm like, "I know.
He must have known.
I'm a raccoon, bro. I can't see shit." Yeah, and I know I probably had to tell a story about what happened, but that's the way it went down. And I did. I'm like, there was a guy telling me he didn't like a cowboy hat. I found BJ, toughest motherfucker I know. Fight this guy. But they all knew it. And here's the best part about it is that once Dow heard about it, who is the president and CEO of Professional's Choice, thank you for many years, and my good friend Monty Christ, he calls me and goes, "Hey," he tells me all that. "We'd rather you not do that. Not a problem," because I didn't want to fuck up none of my endorsement deals at that time anyway. He says, "We just don't want you doing that again. Doesn't look good." I said, "Not a problem." He goes, "I want to let you know." He said, "That bar is where all the Navy SEALs, that's where all they hang out." And I said, "Hey, I don't give a shit if they were ballerina dancers and they were a little flamey. I don't give a fuck. They were all tough, every one of them."
Yeah.
Every one of them, man.
Every one of them.
Thank you for fighting for our freedom.
Yeah. Yeah, and then since then, I haven't fought. Don't want to. Don't want no part of. I'm good.
Shout out.
Yeah.
If somebody don't like
You
your
don't like
cowboy
my hat?
hat,
Can I sell it to you? Do you want me to give it to you? What do you want me to do?
Shout out my new friend Mikey Fletcher in that story.
yeah, dude, we had him on the Tolleson-Mack. He told
Yeah, man,
some
he's
good rodeo stories.
He's a great guy. He's got great stories. He's always entertaining. And it seems that a lot of times, whether it was Mikey or myself or just certain guys, that sometimes when those stories came about, my name was always around it somehow or another because I had fun. You know?
The funnest, man. I'm telling you.
Had fun.
Did you ever rope at a place called Elmer's in South Phoenix?
Remember ever? Did I go to Elmer's?
Man, if you were around here, if you went to Kai, hung out with Kai and Bry and those
Yeah.
guys.
Oh, and going back to that story about Kai and Bry. So back in the day, and this is what brought me to Arizona and made me fall in love with it. I couldn't wait to go to a 2-year college out here. And my mom and dad were just, "No, you can't go to Arizona. You can't go to Arizona." But when we go to Pueblo to the high school finals, those were the fucking dudes. I mean, there was Burley Hambrick, there was Sam Hambrick, there was Clint Pennington, who I saw the other day. There's Tanner, Rube, several, Tom Figueroa. I mean, I can remember lots of guys from Arizona that were no bullshit.
Mm-hmm.
These guys roped the best. And I'm like, if I want to do this, I'm going to CAC. Was that the 2-year?
Yep, that's
Right,
right.
I want to go there because I heard it's great as far as parties, and I'll be in Arizona in the middle of everybody that ropes good. And from that point forward, I formed relationships. But it all started, and I can remember roping with Matt Sherwood at this rope, and he healed for me. They had the World Junior Team Roping Championship in a place called Duncan, Oklahoma. And that was the junior team rope, and that was the one. I know that they later moved it to Amarillo, and then from Amarillo it went to Ardmore. But when they had the junior team roping at Allen, Oklahoma with Bill Duncan, they'd have 600 teams. Denton Payne's mom would always announce. They were a big part of it, her and Bob. And Denton and Speedy won it one year. I don't know if there's much history to be able to look it up, but everyone that was everyone eventually went to Duncan. So the very first year I went to Duncan, I just happened to be with Tanner probably, and then Brian Kai. And I didn't know these boys very well, but they had their hair spiked up. They both kind of dressed and looked alike, and they wore Levi's. They wore button fly Levi's. Well, nobody really wore button fly Levi's to heel in. You know, you at that time wore Wranglers before the cinch and all this new stuff come around. But Kion, and I call him Kion, the late Kion, him and Brian, they wore these Levi's. And I'm like, all right. So I got to know him good enough that year at Allen, Tanner, myself, and Kai, Bry gets so drunk, we just put him in the back of the truck. Well, then we forget about him on the way home back to the motel from Allen to we get drunk at the Little Rope, and we're not even supposed to be drinking, but Bry's for sure young. So he gets drunk and said, we just put him in the back. Well, by the time we get to the motel, I kept hearing what sounded like 14 buckets in the back, just wop, 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 wop. By the time we'd forgot Bry was in the back of the truck, we just rolled him around. So drunk. But he and I became good friends after that, and those guys have been good to me, Kyan and Bry. I'll never say a bad word. I used to make fun of them, too, because they never wore hats. They had a little bit of a fancy mullet and then a spike, you know. So I would look over them at times, you know. Bry would back in there on the box at the BFI, and I would just kind of make my own commercial up. I would go, is your fly buttoned? Yeah, Kai, my fly's buttoned. Not.
Yeah, but he used to wear some of them sparkly shirts and so I
Yeah,
seen some
but
pictures of
it's just he's a genuine gem. He's good people.
Yeah,
they
for
take care of me out here.
yeah.
Yeah. But yeah, it's been good. Rodeo's been fun. It's been everything I wanted. It owes me nothing. I owe it nothing. But to say, a lot of times people want to know if it was a fallen rock star or what happened to him. Yeah, I did some things that probably weren't good for me, but that doesn't make me who I am or what I did.
Yeah.
So I like to heal steers, and I want to continue doing.
Still making a living with your rope.
Yeah, I mean, for now I do. It's not great. My 401k ain't worth a fuck, but for now I don't mind winning 1,200 at a time.
Yeah, hell yeah.
Yeah.
You know?
Hey, you got any, like I say, for a young guy coming up that maybe didn't grow up around listening to Britt Bockius like I did? Like I said, you were a hero of mine. Like, what advice can you give?
Yeah, man, I say it's a lot of the same things. I say that I hope that their parents are able to open up to somebody and go to a professional, a trusted one that may know a good horse without trying to just take it to them. Find him something that's older, even if it needs some maintenance. Heal as many goats as you possibly can. Heal as many moving things as you possibly can. Swing your rope as much as you possibly can while on your horse. Because, you know, so many times I've got a lot of dummy world champions. There's times that I showed up in my schools and I'm like, they rope the sawhorse or rope the dummy better than I do, but they can't catch in the arena. I say do things that actually make sense, you know. I'm not against the mechanical dummy, but if you can rope a lead steer or a donkey or a pig or whatever the fuck it is, it actually has the same movements as a steer's feet, then that's what you should
You
do.
can catch a steer, I promise you.
Yeah, you're going to do it. It's you got to mimic that. And then for the most part too, and I say this and I'll maybe touch up on it one more time. You got to go rope with somebody that ropes better than you. If you don't, from this point forward, you have to do that. I think that's within any sport. What makes people great is because I got to be able to position myself finally once it kind of rolled into the way it did. I roped with somebody that always normally roped better than me, and I didn't want them to. I didn't like it.
Man, that's how you get better. I tell these kids they're good nowadays. They got access to the social media. They
Yeah.
all rope together, win together. They're just pushing each other to get better.
Yeah, it's
The
great.
evolution of the game is great.
It seems as if a lot of kids are healing wonderful and they're making great runs, and there's these new opportunities for them too, as long as the BFI and that junior roping and all these things that are pretty lucrative at most levels. I think it's great. Like I said, I want to see the sport grow because it is what I am. I don't know anything else. Everything that was ever any value to me or is today was because of healing or my gift of gab. One.
Well, I'll be completely honest with you. I'm always roping with somebody better than me.
I kind of quizzed about what his number was before he got here. Tanner says he's a 4. I'm like, but so
Yeah, like the evolution of the game, man. You started off and like when I was coming up, I'm like, you know, people were telling me, hey, come around there and just catch it. You know, fifth hop, just come around there and catch. I'm like, I remember mentioning that Britt Bockius comes around there, one over the back, 2 feet every time.
Yeah.
That's what I want to do.
That's what we
if
need
he,
to do.
If he can catch 10 in a row, well, one man can do, another can do. And I remember being a little kid trying to heal like Britt Bockius.
It's a time event.
Yeah.
So all the young kids out there that are healing the Denton Dunnings, little Michaels, we got to give Britt Bockius a little bit of credit.
I appreciate
One of
that.
the legendary Cowboys in our game right here.
Yeah, man, I appreciate that. And again, thank you for my time. Thank you for my sport. And thank you for all of those people that maybe I didn't look upon as important to me. You are.
I appreciate you. Thank you, Britt. Appreciate you. Tolleson-Mack loves you.
Thank you. Awesome, fellas.
Heck yeah, that was awesome.